Welcome. My name is Shuli Karkowski, and I am the CEO of Moving Traditions. I am thrilled to welcome you all to this celebration in honor of our founding CEO, Deborah Meyer. Tonight, we will join in ritual, music, learning, and tribute as we appreciate Deborah's leadership and the incredible organization Deborah built and led for over 16 years. We will also officially rename the Kol Kolenu Teen Feminist Fellowship in honor of Deborah and her partner in founding Moving Traditions, Sally Gottesman. I can think of no greater way to honor Deborah and Sally's legacy than by inspiring a next generation of Jewish feminist activists. I am personally so grateful to Deborah in this moment. I could not have asked for a better partner in this succession process. She has been smart, strategic, organized, and poised. Deborah has no recollection of our first meeting on a Zoom organized by a foundation, but I do, because she radiated poise even through the screen, something I like to call big Zoom energy. Deborah then took me out to lunch as part of my interview process, and I was totally smitten. I told the search committee at my next interview that it was one of the best first dates I've ever been on. Since then, Deborah has done everything in her power to secure the future of Moving Traditions, leaving the scaffolding for growth, even as she departs. As for Sally, the world needs more leaders like Sally, brilliant but unpretentious, invested with her whole heart in our work, but eager to see it grow beyond her influence. I am in true awe of both of these women. I will forever be proud to have a program carry their names. Tomorrow is Ta'anit Esther, a minor Jewish fast day the day before Purim that commemorates Esther's bravery. In the Purim story, Esther learns of Haman's plot to murder the Jews. Esther decides to confront the king, reveal her Jewish identity, and plead for her people's safety. But before she does so, she asks the entire community to fast with her. She enacts the deeply feminist values of spiritual preparation and calling on communal support. This story resonates with everything Moving Traditions does, everything Deborah built into its DNA, giving Jewish youth the power to be strong in themselves, shleimut, to care for their community, chesed, and collaborate in building a more just world, tzedek. Finally, we want to begin tonight by paying tribute to Vashti. Vashti appears early in the Purim story, the king's first wife, who refuses to appear naked at his party. She loses the throne, setting the course for Esther to become queen. When I was growing up, Vashti was never celebrated. I love how her story has been reclaimed and reappropriated, as we have come to applaud Vashti exercising control over her own body. We'll celebrate that bravery now through the powerful song of Bat Yelavin, accompanied by Rena Branson. Please enjoy.
There was this girl named Vashti. She felt good walking into that party. She had the air of a queen, strong and bold, with integrity. Little did the subjects know that Queen Vashti had grown. When she was picked from the crowd, she was not so bold and loud. Across the room was the king, thinking that he was god of everything. His friends, drunk on ego and wine, were hanging around having a good time. The king, addicted to the crowd, wanted to dictate what's allowed. So he said, Queen, I propose you get over here and take off your clothes. She said, no, 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 I'm in charge of my own body, so no, 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 don't have to do it just cause you said so. No, 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 I'm in charge of my own body, so no, 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 don't have to do it 'cause you said so. No. What were you thinking? That ego? You don't own me, no. Not in charge of my clothes. Been locked in your tower, enduring all of your power. You don't own me, no. You don't own me, no. So listen here and let's be clear. I'm not just a plaything to call on when you want me there. You've been telling me, tell me all the time what I can do, what I can't do with what is mine. I'm sick of your shit, so I'm here to speak my mind. And though I know this may end me, at least I will be mine. Don't worry about me, it's your misogyny that's going down in history. I'll be over here with my fist held high, searching the patriarchy. She said no, no, no. I'm in charge of my own body, so no, no, no. Don't have to do it just 'cause you said so. No, no, no. I'm in charge of my own body, so no, no, no. Don't have to do it just 'cause you said so. No.
Good evening, friends. The story of Purim gives us two powerful examples of women standing up for what they felt was right and just. For Vashti, it was a personal refusal to let anyone other than herself control her body. For Esther, it was stepping out of her comfort zone to reveal her truth and plead for her people. The Kol Kolenu Fellowship gives young Jewish feminists the learning, mentorship, and peer support to begin their journey as changemakers. They leave the fellowship equipped with the confidence, skills, and community they need to help make transformative change in our Jewish community and larger society. It is now my honor to formally rename the Kol Kolenu Teen Feminist Fellowship in honor of the two visionary feminist changemakers who founded Moving Traditions, Deborah Meyer and Sally Gottesman. They are modern models of two Jewish women who saw a need and acted to make transformative change within the Jewish community. The Kol Kolenu Feminist Fellowship is near and dear to both Deborah's and Sally's hearts, as it ensures that Moving Traditions will continue to be at the forefront of emboldening a new generation of Jewish feminists. On behalf of Moving Traditions board and staff, and with gratitude to you, our supporters who are making this possible, I turn to words of blessing. Misha Berach imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel, va'avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Gam yivarech et Moving Traditions ve'Kol Kolenu, avodat kodesh ve'kihila feminist shel shituf pe'ula letzedek. May the one who blessed our mothers, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, and our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, bless Moving Traditions and the holy work of the Kol Kolenu Fellowship. May this fellowship continue to develop a new generation of Jewish feminist leaders, emboldened to recognize all voices and gifted with the skills and resources to build a more equitable and promising future for us all. May the fellowship from this day on be known by the name the Meyer Gottesman Kol Kolenu Teen Feminist Fellowship, so that it may be a lasting reminder of the vision of Moving Traditions founders and a model for us all of the power of feminist collaboration. Amen.
I'm Abigail Pogreben, and it's my honor and privilege to be interviewing Deborah Meyer, CEO and founder of Moving Traditions. Hello, Deborah.
Hey, Abby. So nice to be here with you.
And to be with you. You talk so often, you give kavod to all of the young people whose lives I think it's safe to say you've really affected and even changed dramatically. But we don't hear a lot about what you were like as a grade schooler and a teen. So give us just a sense of Deborah Meyer as a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old when you were growing up and your Jewish context, your Jewish bio.
Sure, sure. As a kid, like many girls, I felt like a person. And it really wasn't until I hit adolescence that I realized that being a girl meant that I wasn't necessarily a full human being. And I feel that a real impetus for all of the work that I've done in my life, including founding and directing Moving Traditions, is that I was really told that I didn't necessarily have a seat at the table. And a story that kind of paints this picture is that when my brother had a bar mitzvah, it was Saturday morning and all the relatives came in to the DC area from New York and all over the place. And then when I had a bat mitzvah, it was Friday night with Haftorah and not as many guests. And when I asked my parents about this, their answer was, "You'll have the wedding." And which was like typical for the time. It's not my parents' fault. That was what the culture was like. And I felt like that wasn't right. Like, why couldn't I have this Saturday morning Torah experience?
Let's fast forward to Moving Traditions. Tell me about the gestation of your organization.
When we started Moving Traditions, I really wanted to focus Jewish education and engagement for teens on what it means to be a human being and how to become a full, engaged, healthy person in our society today. So for me, Jewish education should be more than how to light candles or say Kiddush, but really, what does it mean to grow up and be a strong individual who feels good about themselves in relationship with others and engaged in building a society we want to live in.
And so much of the programming seems to be oriented towards acknowledging what the roadblocks are for a young person growing up, whether it's insecurity, whether it's competition, a sense of having to be perfect, gender identity, sexuality, just honestly self-esteem is so fragile now, and particularly in the social media moment, which is not the moment in which you created moving tradition. So how have some of the challenges changed as you've seen them evolve for young people?
I mean, I think you're right. I think that many of the challenges are the same, and what's changed is the intensification of those challenges by social media. We love social media. It's got so many pluses, and yet for kids, it really lifts up perfectionism, as it does for adults. But when you are just figuring out who you are and trying to organize this growing and changing body, and dealing with finding your place with your peers, social media can be really, really challenging. And the pandemic has been enormously challenging with all of its social isolation. What teens and preteens really need is to be together in the same room, laughing, falling all over each other, playing and learning what does it mean to be in community. And when we're behind our screens, it's just not the same. So it's been a really tough couple of years for everybody, and especially for preteens and teens.
I'm sure you have seen, as we all have, that there is increasing disparagement about some of the ideas I think that you hold dear, focusing on a sense of the whole self, who am I, personal wholeness, an idea that a program is holistic. There are people who sort of poo-poo or dismiss this stuff as being crunchy. And I would just love to give you the chance to say why it's urgent, why having this kind of orientation, these conversations with young people is really as important as any of the stuff that some people consider more concrete or more practical.
In a culture that is polarized and where unfortunately hate really has been unleashed, it is more important than ever that we help individual teens and preteens value themselves and also understand how to talk to each other with respect and compassion, that we can disagree and still be in relationship, that there are problems in the world and we can work together to change them. These are deeply Jewish concepts, and we have a deep history of Jewish people working together out of respect and love for social justice. And I'm hoping we can continue to grow that aspect of our tradition.
I would love you to just address specifically Kol Kolenu. Why is it particularly inspiring or important to you?
I love the Kol Kolenu Fellowship, and I'm so honored and thankful that it's been named for my co-founder, Sally Gottesman, and me. And that really encapsulates what it is that I love about Kol Kolenu, that it's important to have leadership and to build leadership, but I strongly believe that we must learn how to collaborate and lift up our partnerships, that working together for change is really how we're going to create the world we want to live in. And I'm so inspired by these smart, savvy, compassionate, and hardworking teens who are in touch with their Jewish values, in touch with their feminism, and are really helping other Jewish teens make change in the world. That's the kind of leadership that I'm really excited to be helping to build.
And what about your leadership style? How would you describe it? And if you could maybe articulate one aspect of it that you wish you could pass on to young women.
I feel that I think even today, one of the hardest things for women is to really hold our own value and to lift our voices and to ask for what we want and to really say what we're looking for. And I feel that it's not always easy to articulate what you want. It's not always easy to tell people when they're not necessarily making the mark. But if we can find compassion and clarity, then we can really forge strong relationships, and together we can resolve issues. And I really hope that women today will continue to lift up each other's voices and their own voices and really sing it loud and proud. And that's one reason, Kol Kolenu has such a great name. It's all our voices.
And I just would love to end with that word voice, because when we spoke earlier, you focused on a Hebrew phrase that I think is very powerful and guides you. It's translated, I think, as gentle whisper, or the thin voice of silence. And you talked about why we have to ask ourselves first, kol demama deka. Can you help expand on that a little bit?
Kol demama deka is the still small voice inside ourselves. So it really is, our agency really starts, our ability to act in the world effectively starts with listening to ourselves and finding the time and the moments to really discern what it is that we want and what will best serve us. And then bringing that voice out, articulating what it is that we want to others with clarity. And I think when we're clear and centered, we're also kind. And that, that strength with kindness and with compassion is really what I think we want to go for more and more, I hope, today.
Deborah, thank you for your commitment. Thank you for these 16 years. Thank you for the innovation and the courage and passing on such a crucial place, such crucial ideas, such crucial leadership for the next generation.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much.
I'm Jennifer Analik, and as the Fellowship Director for Kol Kolenu, I want to take us a little deeper into Vashti and Esther's roles within the Purim story. Often we talk about who the better queen or feminist was, but today I want to explore something else. What if Esther and Vashti had a chance to be in a community together? Vashti, the leader who says, no, I'm leaving. I'm in charge of my own body. I'm willing to risk everything for what I know to be right. And Esther, the leader who takes her time, considers her choices and how to stay safe, calls upon her community for support, and leads her people to safety. What could they have learned from each other? Questions like these are part of the Jewish feminist practice of midrash. I like to explain it as biblical fan fiction. Midrash challenges us to expand upon and reinterpret stories, giving a voice to the voiceless or mostly voiceless characters, who, let's face it, are often women. Rabbi Tamara Cohen, who helped create the Kol Kolenu Fellowship, says she always imagined that during Ta'anit Esther, Esther's fast, Vashti came to visit. In that moment, how might Vashti have helped Esther? How might their differences have helped sharpen each other's activism? We can begin to answer these questions by talking with teen fellows in our Meyer Gottesman Kolkolenu Fellowship. Our fellows grapple with many of the same challenges as Vashti and Esther. What to do when faced with sexism, anti-Semitism, racism, and other prejudices. How to stand up for ourselves and use our power for good. And try out a range of effective activism strategies. Then they work with mentors to build social change projects. I've invited 3 of our fellows to join us tonight. Hi everyone. Why don't we start with your names and where you're connecting from?
My name is Samantha Renzulli, and I am calling in from Fairfield, Connecticut.
My name is Meyer, and I'm calling in from Los Angeles, California.
My name is Emma Green, and I'm calling in from Needham, Massachusetts.
So we just looked at the story of Esther and Vashti. Curious what you all think. What do you think that they would have learned from each other if they were in a community together?
I think they would have learned that they both have different styles and of communicating and making change. And I think they would learn that there are multiple ways to approach something.
I agree, and I think they'd have the space in the fellowship to understand each other's perspectives, to have a conversation about where they're coming from, what their experiences have taught them, and to have an understanding of what's going on in the other person's head when they take the certain approach that they choose to take. And I think that would be very valuable in not only advancing each woman's individual activism, but also taking in some of the ideas of the other into their own pursuit of change.
When you think of yourself and your own leadership and activism skills, do you think that you're more of a Vashti, an Esther, or something else?
I think definitely through Kolkolenu, I've sort of developed my form of activism from being more of an Esther to becoming more of a Vashti and being more outspoken and confident in what I want to say and share.
And when you think about Kolkolenu and how it's inspired you and prepared you to make change, what are some of the things that come to mind?
I think it's given me an understanding of how many avenues there are to create change and to go about making change. I have so much empathy for, and I align with, I think, Esther's more calculated approach to this story. So I think, and something that I've learned through the fellowship is to embrace that Vashti, like Maya was saying, and approach new challenges with an excitement for what's going to come out of them.
So 2 different toolkits that you can pull from, maybe 2 or more, the Esther toolkit, the Vashti toolkit, and other toolkits that you've learned. And Samantha and Maya, tell us about your projects. What are you working on?
Yeah, so my project is centered around environmental racism, and this is my 2nd year working on this project. And really early on, some of the struggles that we had is that we decided that we wanted to work with a partner organization in order to create tangible change in our communities, as opposed to maybe an online presence. We wanted to really be facilitating work in our communities and our neighborhoods. And a big issue was that the COVID pandemic had started, and so we were having a really hard time reaching out and getting different organizations who were actually available and willing to work with us. But we ended up reaching out to, say, around 30 or 40 different organizations around the country, and we got one yes, and we worked with them for 6 months, and we were able to work to pass a bill in the House, which was really exciting.
The project that I am currently working on is a podcast project called Her Brain Matters. My goal is to elevate understanding of the female identifying brain that we don't learn about in our biology classes and health classes in school. One of the challenges that I'm currently working on and working to address is how to promote and publish this podcast to a variety of audiences that aren't in my direct community, because I can very easily try to get this around through my own social media efforts. But something I'm trying to work on is how can I get this to a wider audience.
Emma, what project are you working on?
So our project is called Group Chat, and it's a podcast where we have conversations about sexual assault and sexual harassment issues like casual misogyny or domestic violence or counseling.
And I'm going to take us back to Esther and Vashti for a moment, just thinking about that moment when the two of them when the two of them might have helped one another create change, just thinking about that midrash. What are some ways that the Kol Kolenu Fellowship has helped you get ready to create change?
I think one of the key pieces of this change-making process is the mentors that we have. Not only the mentors we're given in the mentor process that everyone goes through in Kokolinu, but also the cohort leaders. And I think I can say that a lot of the teens that I've worked with, all the teens that I've worked with have been mentors to me.
Yeah, and I think an aspect of this fellowship that's really special is that we all have different projects, and so there are a lot of different topics that are of interest, and so you don't only hyperfixate on your own topic. So for me, yes, I have a very harsh stress on environmental racism, but I'm able to, in our fellowship calls, learn about different topics and interests of other people, and so through them and through the resources that they provide, I'm able to be an active activist and ally and supporter in their fights as well.
Well, thank you all for sharing about your experience in Kol Kolenu and about all of your inspiring change-making work that you've been doing. I know for myself, I'm going to look forward to seeing not only what your projects accomplish, but also what you each accomplish in the next stages of your lives. I'm so excited to see that. And thank you so much for being here.
You fellows are so inspiring. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. It's such a pleasure to be with you from my home in Philadelphia. I just wish everyone could be here with me together. I'm going to share with you a bit about how we make it happen, how at their fall retreat, Moving Traditions guides the Kol Kolenu Teen Fellows to choose their social change projects. First, the fellows define feminism. For me, feminism is a movement that works for the liberation of all people, everyone, regardless of gender identity, girls and women, trans and non-binary people, and boys and men. There's a Jewish teaching from the book of Genesis which guides the vision of Moving Traditions, that we are each made in the divine image, B'Tselem Elohim. Feminists look at what gets in the way, how we can be made to feel less than a whole person as a result of gender stereotyping and other forms of discrimination. Because all forms of oppression dehumanize people. Feminists work together to resist sexism so that we can each become our full human selves, B'Tselem Elohim. Our society sends a lot of messages about gender, as well as messages that any problem we experience is our own individual problem. If something is wrong with me. At Moving Traditions, we help teens to see that many problems are systemic. They are built into our society, including sexism, and that we have a long Jewish tradition of working together for social change. So once the fellows define feminism and understand that many problems are systemic and learn that it is a Jewish value to work together for tzedek, justice, next, the fellows consider their own lived experiences to select the issue they want to work on. This is a brilliant idea. I love this because it shows how the personal is political. The fellows consider the question, what most causes me pain? How does sexism most affect my life and the people I love? Just look at these answers, written by one cohort of fellows this year. Expectations about what our bodies need to look like, having to pay a ridiculous amount for period supplies, and being afraid to walk at night. It's heart-wrenching to read these. But next, the fellows think about the causes and systems at the root of their pain. For example, expectations about what our bodies should look like and feeling sexualized are both rooted in sexism in popular media. The fellows then sort themselves into work groups around a common root cause. Working together for change is core to Kolkolenu and to Moving Traditions. By partnering, we can have the biggest impact. And by working together, we overcome feelings of isolation. This is so important to teens and to everyone, especially now, as we emerge from the pandemic and as we face war in Europe. In the final step, each group of fellows selects one or more of these 4 approaches to change making. As you can see in the chart, we can make change in individual attitudes and beliefs. For example, we can help one person to understand that an ad is sexist and/or racist. Or we can work to change cultural norms, the attitudes and beliefs of many people, perhaps by organizing a rally. We can improve access to resources one person at a time, putting tampons in the school bathroom, or we can create new policies, for example, working with our summer camp to implement a sexual harassment policy. So now you know how Moving Traditions emboldens collaborative change-making. The Kolkolenu Fellows define feminism and learn that it is a core Jewish value to work for justice. They explore how they have each personally experienced sexism, and then they connect their personal experiences to root causes and systems of oppression. And finally, they create an activist project in collaboration with other fellows to make a specific change. It's a meaningful and heartening experience. At Moving Traditions, we love to create opportunities for meaning making. So now, I'm turning things over to Pam Barkley, our Vice President of Program, who is a master of creating transformative experiences online and in person.
Thank you, Deborah. So we heard a little bit from our Kolkolenu Fellows and about their activist journeys. And of course, it is wonderful to hear, as many of you reflected in the chat, about the next generation of young women that are coming up. And while that is really great and it's fun to kvel a little bit, it's also important to think about all that Deborah's just said in terms of us and what this means to us as individuals. And my guess is, as you've been listening to the various ways in which we can be activists, you've thought to yourselves, I've done things like this. I know this journey. You might recall that you've petitioned for a specific change at some point, or you marched on Washington, or maybe you organized a postcard campaign for a cause, right? We've all done different kinds of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms right now, and I'm going to ask you all to look at the prompt in the chat and think about what was the most meaningful experience of activism that you ever had. This could be yesterday or many years ago. It could be something big, something small, any of the ways in which Deborah described, formal, informal, all of those things. And share with a person or two in your random breakout room what that experience was like for you. What made that meaningful? What was it that inspired you? What experience inspired you to go and do something? So I'm going to start us all in breakout rooms. Please accept the invitation, and we'll be in the rooms for about 5 minutes. See you all when we get back. I think everyone is now back out of their breakout rooms now. Sorry for those of you who experienced some sort of technical difficulties in the breakout room. I'm not sure. I stayed in the main room with a bunch of folks, and it was great having a conversation. And I want to get like a little peek into some of the rooms. Some of you who came back in heard us talking, but I want to get a little peek into some of the rooms. And for that, I'm gonna ask two folks who are here with us just to share what went on in their breakout room. Can I have Yardena Gerwin tell us what happened in her room? What activism stories did you folks talk about?
We had a great room. One story from me, I'm a student at Middlebury College, and we have a beloved professor who teaches Jewish history in the United States and feminist history. And she was not going to have her contract renewed and was going to have to go to another college. And the students of Middlebury, primarily the Jewish students, And I helped lead a campaign to actually get her to stay on campus. I've been gathering letters. We gathered over 50 letters, signing petitions. We met with the provost and the president. And just last week, we got confirmation that she received a tenure track offer, which doesn't happen a lot in academia.
Amazing.
So it's really
Mazel
amazing
tov.
for Middlebury. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you. Wow, that's a great story. Thank you. And Mike Markovitz, can you tell us what went on in your little Zoom world breakout room?
Sure, glad to. And we also had great conversation, a variety of experiences, but I'll share one of mine. In my 20s and 30s, I led a group of men committed to fighting sexism. We did many things, including identifying objectionable billboards of images of women. And after midnight, going out and spray painting those billboards with the phrase, "Stop sexism." That was fun.
Yeah.
A little scary. A little scary.
Wow. Wow. So even just these couple of stories, right? Activism comes in all forms. I wish we could hear from every single breakout room, and we would have such a long list of inspiring stories and ways in which we can all make a difference in some way. Again, small, big, in any way you can. So our journeys continue, just like the Kokoleno Fellows' journeys continue, and hopefully we will hear more activist stories in our future. And with that, I'm going to thank you and turn it back to Deborah.
Thanks, Pam, and thank you, everybody. Those are great stories. You've just explored the values that are at the core of Moving Traditions' mission. By working with other Jewish teens for tzedek, justice, based in chesed, meaningful relationships, in this way, individual Jewish teens build their shleimut, wholeness and resilience. While building their personal well-being, teens work together for the well-being of our society as a whole, which in turn reinforces their individual well-being as a Jewish teen. At this difficult moment in history, we need to embolden more Jewish teens to work for social change. Thank you for helping make this work possible. I am beyond grateful and proud that the Kol Kolenu Teen Fellowship is now named after me and my talented and much-loved co-founder, Sally Gottesman. I also want to thank Darcy Crystal, Chair, and the members of the Moving Traditions Board, as well as Lisa Gersten and all of the Moving Traditions staff for this beautiful and touching evening, and for all you do with such passion and commitment for Jewish teens. And now, going forward, under the dynamic leadership of Moving Traditions' new CEO, Shuli Karkowski. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you for that amazing teaching. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce this short tribute video in honor of your leadership and the impact you've had on all of us.
Moving Traditions embodies my mom's core values, which are feminism and meaning making. I definitely see my mother as a leader, not even just a female leader, a leader.
I think that Deborah is a really talented executive director, a really great visionary, a really dedicated person to what she feels passionate about.
Deborah for us is a consummate professional. She's an exceptional human being on top of it.
Deborah is incredibly thoughtful. She's serious, but she's also fun.
She lifts us up, empowers us to have our own sense of leadership, our own voice, and I think that she cultivates that in her role and also in the organization itself to empower and lift people up.
She's both visionary, she's competent, she's learned over her many years at Moving Traditions about how to be an even better CEO and how to really lead a team of people to accomplish what the mission of the organization is.
She has grown something that started with an idea into something that is just expansive nationally. And it's deep, deep work.
My mom is a very hard worker, and I think that comes from a place of how much passion she has for her nonprofit. And I think she built an organization that she can enact her values through.
I generally, look at organizations and their strength as a reflection of the leadership of the organization. And the strength of Moving Traditions is very much a reflection of the strength of the leadership that Deborah has provided for so long.
This transition alone is a reflection of Deborah. She understood how hard it must actually be to step away from the thing that you built. How hard must that be? And yet she did it. She believed in the process. She created the process, and she is moving aside to make room for Shuli.
I think that Deborah and I both grew from this relationship, right? That I think that the organization grew and we grew. We were much younger when we started Moving Traditions. I think that the thing that we shared early on was the idea that we could make something bigger than ourselves, that this was needed in the world. We had, in some ways, a shared vision of what could be done and how much work it would take. That was another thing that I think that Deborah and I both understood, that it's not easy to take an idea and make it a reality.
I think that naming the Kolkoleno Fellowship after Deborah and Sally is so appropriate and so wonderful. It's the heart of what Moving Traditions has been about. It speaks to the values of Deborah and Sally as strong feminists, as leaders, and what we're trying to do with the Kolkoleno Fellowship is to create the next generation of feminist leaders. And if they follow in Sally and Deborah's footsteps, we'll all be in great shape.
I think it's really exciting to have a legacy, especially in my mom's name. I think it's beautiful to have that connection.
And I remember she was really excited that it was like a her and Sally thing too, because they were such like teammates and partners. And I think it's really nice that it's a tribute to both her and Sally together and what they've created.
Yeah, it's very fitting as a tribute that her legacy will be in this fellowship that empowers other women, just as she's empowered us.
Deborah, listening to those stories, it is so clear that in every aspect of your life, you are someone who inspires others with your energy, vision, and passion. The staff at Moving Traditions has experienced this as well through your many years of mentorship and leadership.
For us, you have not only been our Chief Executive Officer, you've been our teacher, and for that we are so grateful.
As you hand off your leadership of Moving Traditions, we hope that your heart will be full in knowing that we will always be your students, because we have taken in your wisdom and have been enriched by your words and acts of compassion. Now it is time for your next journey. And so we offer you this Tifilat HaDerech, Traveler's Prayer, to guide and protect you along the way.
May it be your will, God of those that came before us,
to guide us and to direct our steps in peace,
and to bring us home in wholeness, joy, and peace.
Save us from all dangers and perils and from all afflictions that threaten our world.
Grant us insight and wisdom to overcome all obstacles.
Help us to act in ways that reflect your compassion and generous love.
Listen to our pleading voices, because you are the one who hears prayer.
Blessed are you, holy ancient one of old, who guides us on this journey through the wilderness and into the land.
Yehi ratzon milfaneach, Adonai Eloheinu, v'lochei avotenu v'motenu. She tolechenu shalom, v'tatzidinu shalom.
V'taginu el michos hatzenu l'chaim u'simcha u'shalom.
V'tatzilinu mikaf kol oyev ve'orev v'ason baderech.
V'titninu l'chen u'chesed u'rachamim be'enaich u'be'enei kol ro'enu.
V'tishmei kol tachanunenu ki el shomat tefillah v'tachanun at.
Bracha at Adonai shoma'at tefillah.
And now we have one final ritual to honor Deborah.
Deborah, as the rabbis on staff at Moving Traditions, as your longtime colleagues, friends, and students, it's our pleasure now and our honor to wrap you in this Rosh Chodesh cloth as a talit for this closing ritual. And we're going to slowly turn you around.
There is a strange and powerful blessing that happens the moment that a bar mitzvah stands on the bima and their parents say words of release. Those words of release are said, and the parent thinks back to the beginning, thinks back to the early years, thinks of the good and the bad and everything in between.
So Deborah, you have birthed Moving Traditions. You have raised us and guided us, along with co-parents, along with other midwives, along with aunts and uncles and friends and teachers and supporters. And we stand here now ready to walk along in our own journey. You will be with us always, and you have brought us to this moment of maturity and readiness to walk without you.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say the words slowly in Hebrew, and you can repeat them, of this blessing, because now we're taking on the responsibility ourselves for the actions and all the great things that are going to happen with Moving Traditions. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Brucha at.
Brucha at.
Shiptarani.
Shipatarani.
Me'ansho zu.
Ma'ansho zu.
And in English.
Blessed is the Holy One.
Blessed is the Holy One.
Who releases me.
Who releases me.
From this responsibility.
From this responsibility.
And now we can say Mazel Tov!
Mazel tov and Simen tov, Simen tov and Mazel tov and Mazel tov and Simen tov, Simen tov and Mazel tov and Mazel tov and Simen tov. Hey, Lanu.
To adore. Children chant for peace.